Professor Peter Scharff. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone who has joined us here today. My name is Professor Peter Scharff, and I'm speaking to you today from Germany as the chair of the World Technology Universities Network. I can say that I'm really happy and excited to be opening the 6th annual World Technology Universities Congress here in 2021. Although we have once again been unable to meet in person, I regret this really, by the way. This year I'm proud of the selection of sessions which the network will be bringing to you all over the next 4 days. A big welcome to our current members, but for those of you who might be new to WTUN and joining for the first time, let me tell you a little bit about us. The World Technology Universities Network is an international group of technology universities who are committed to working together to combat the issues that society faces today. Through teaching, learning, and research, we aim to make a difference to people's lives as well as produce global citizens through our students. As a network, we provide our members with opportunities for international mobility, collaboration through research, teaching and learning, opportunities to share best practice and learn from each other, and competitions for our students. Whilst the international aspect in many of our institutions have slowed down over the past 2 years because of the global corona pandemic, WTUN has continued to provide opportunities for our members. This year, we launched our first ever WTUN Innovation Hackathon for Climate Action, tasking students from across the network to work with a set of international peers who they had never met before, to come up with an innovation to tackle climate action in just 48 hours. Through a series of mentoring sessions from our experts day and night, a group of really tired students came up with some of the most brilliant and innovative ideas ever, and I'm excited that we will be hearing from the winning team during our showcase session on Thursday. So keep in mind, showcase session on Thursday. We also relaunched our annual student competition, which saw students working in teams to address various UN Sustainable Development Goals. We will also be hearing from a group of successful students later this week. We are also happy to announce that through continued engagement, we have welcomed new members this year, and we are looking forward to working with them as we move forward. This year, our members have planned and will be hosting a variety of sessions throughout the week. We have 6 sessions taking place from today until Thursday. Although the sessions are varied, they always come back to our mission and vision here at WTUN about working together to make a difference. Today, King Mongkut's University of Technology, Thornburi, will be hosting one of our more technical sessions about energy system transformation for a carbon neutral future. Tomorrow, our network host, the University of Bradford, will be addressing civically engaged institutions in a global landscape and the balancing act we face across our organizations. On Wednesday, we will begin with a session hosted by National Taiwan University of Science and Technology about international student collaboration for community involvement. And later, we will move to a session from Alia University entitled Climate Change Affects All. I'm really excited about this session as we will be hearing from several speakers, including Dr. Tassaneewan from the World Health Organization, as well as hosting our first ever student debate about corporate social responsibility and the part it plays in climate action. On the final day of WTUC 2021, we will begin with another session from Taiwan Tech who will be looking at the practices and strategies of university social responsibility and the roles our institutions must play. Finally, we will be hosted by Hamm-Lippstadt University of Applied Sciences, who will, as the question with less than 10 years to go, are we making enough progress for the 2030 UN Sustainable Development Goals? This will be concluded by our WTUN showcase session, where we will be presenting 2 lifetime fellowship awards and announcing a new initiative, as well as opening the floor to all of you to share with us the ideas that you wish to bring to the network. Over the week, you will have the opportunity to hear from over 65 members of staff and students from both our members and other organizations that we are working with. This year, we have had 240 registrations from almost 40 countries, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad that being virtual gives us the opportunity to share with so many more of you, and I can't wait to hear from you all over the next week. As we move into the 5th year of operation, I'm more convinced than ever about the potential of the network, and I hope you get the same feeling whilst hearing more about the good works for our members throughout the Congress. Thank you once again for joining us today, and I hope to see you all at further sessions this week. So, without further delay, I would like to open the Congress and ask our first keynote speaker of the week, Ambassador Sanjay Kumar Verma from the Embassy of India in Tokyo, to provide his address. Thank you very much. The Congress is opened.
Thank you very much, Professor Peter Scharff, Chairman of WTUC 2021. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a domain expert. I'm not a technologist as well. But what I realize is that technology is only an enabler, and an enabler cannot work without an environment in which it can be enabled. Therefore, the governance and the governments come into picture. So in my remarks, I'm only going to talk about a few pointers from governance point of view, from the societal point of view, which is equally, if not more, important than the technology, where if we want to have carbon neutrality in the world in near future. Now, first of all, what we need to think is, what is the energy system based on? The entire energy system that we talk of today are based on 2 main factors. One is the consumers, another is regulators. While consumers are societal, the regulators are governments. And therefore, unless we are able to create both, bring both of them on board, it will not be possible for the technology to create the kind of carbon neutrality that it wishes to achieve. When we talk of consumers, I'm not only talking about the consumers in the developed world, but also in the developing countries and those countries which are categorized as least developed countries. If you look at those people, the awareness is lacking. And unless we are able to build up awareness through advocacy, through imparting education, through imparting experiences that we have gone through, adoption of technologies will not be possible. So while technologists, engineers, and scientists can work on one stream, I believe that other group of people who are basically into raising awareness amongst the people would need to work on their own, or with the government, or through the non-governmental organization or international organizations to bring the consumers of energy on board. Then we come to the regulators. The governments have to be on the board. Now, it's very easy to say that the government needs to have a well-defined objective. The government need to have a well-defined process to reach that objective. But when you look at it closely, particularly in the democracies, there could be many disruptions. there could be change of government. And if people are not on board, which is basically the consumers, if they are not on board, they are also the voters, and therefore the governments will breach their own commitments given to the international community. So when we look at the regulatory aspect, then the governments must bring in legislations so that they are bound by those legislations. It doesn't matter who is the government of the day. Moving forward, the international agencies through intergovernmental agreements also need to fix up a boundary for all the governments and the peoples of the world to work within. Once these two things are fixed, then we can say that we have an objective to achieve and we can move forward thereafter. Advocacy groups have a special place in the entire ecosystem. Unless the advocacy groups are well oiled, are well informed, are well integrated, it will be difficult for us to bring everyone on board to reach the final objective of carbon neutrality in near future. What I also feel that there are countries of different economies, there are countries of different scales, there are countries having a population of 70,000 people, there are countries having a population of 1.4 billion people. India itself boasts 1.3 billion people. So when you look at that kind of complex environment, the requirement of technologies to be kept in the public domain becomes very important. All of you can innovate, all of you are scientists, engineers, and technologists, but after the innovation, if the commercial price of the technology is too high, that itself is an impediment for people to adopt. And therefore, if we are able to put at least some of the technologies in the public domain, it will work well with those countries which are not endowed with a lot of wealth like many other developed countries. The discussion and debate that we are doing today, largely, I see that these are developed countries where the discussion is taking place. But we need to take the discussions. We need to take WTUC discussions and debates to least developed countries and developing countries, because they are the main clients. They host the maximum number of people in the world, and therefore they also are responsible for a large amount of greenhouse gas emissions. So the technologies need to be put in such a basket that it is easily accessible by the governments of poorer nations and the people. How do we do it? After all, every innovation has got an expense attached to it. There comes the role of upscaling in international lines of credit, aids, and assistance. As we know that the Bretton Woods organizations, they do provide a lot of government-to-government credit. And if we look at IFC of the World Bank Group, they also provide credit to private companies. So if we have a good ecosystem created for providing credit both to the public sector and the private sector by donors in the world and through the international organizations using lines of credit, we can be sure that the cost of adoption of the technology will be reduced. Once it is reduced, there is more willingness on the part of poorer governments to take their commitments on and move forward. When we talk of any new technology, which I'm sure over a period of next few days, we'll be talking a lot on these, the life cycle costs are extremely important. So when we say that we have made a solar panel, there is energy which goes into manufacturing of solar panel. There is energy which goes into the maintenance of solar panel. There is energy which goes into installation of solar panel. And finally, the utilization of solar panel. And at the end, after the life cycle ends of that solar panel, there is energy which goes into dumping it somewhere or the other. So when we look at all these factors, I would suggest that before we compare technologies, before we consider technologies for adoption, we need to consider the life cycle cost as far as the greenhouse emissions are concerned, damage to environment is concerned, damage to ecology is concerned, before we move forward. One of the final points in my remarks is to keep an eye on the socioeconomic sustenance without causing too much of disruptions. Every country, every society, every group of people is used to a certain kind of lifestyle. They are used to certain kind of processes through which they live their lives. If we create disruptions to such an extent that their lifestyle is completely disrupted, probably that will not serve our purpose. So when we bring in the technologies, then the socioeconomic sustenance needs to be kept in mind. When I say disruptions, yes, disruptions will happen. After all these technologies are disruptive technologies, and therefore they will disrupt the process and the lifestyle that we are going through. But they should be innovated. The sustenance should be innovated and not merely disrupted. So which basically means that we can value add to our disruptions and make the sustenance process easier to go through and survive. When we look at socioeconomic sustenance, let's not forget that various countries have different population sizes. So if a country has 50,000 people, their total carbon footprint will be different than a country which has got 1.3 billion people. So should we consider per capita carbon footprint rather than considering the country's total carbon footprint as a whole? Because if we don't do that, then what will happen is that the carbon footprint of people of per capita people of the smaller nations will be much higher than the poorer nations, and therefore the poor nations will remain poor, and the richer nations, which are smaller in size of population, will continue growing in their economic might. So therefore, we need to keep in mind the per capita energy consumption and bring it to the global average, which is acceptable to the sustenance of the socioeconomic living. As an example, if I take, say, electric vehicles versus ICE vehicles, a lot of things are being talked about. These are considered to be game changers in coming 5 to 10 years. There again, we have to look at what is the total cost, life cycle cost of these technologies, including the energy density of the fuel. So if I'm expected to wait for 8 hours for my car to be charged completely, probably that is not the most convenient way to convince me to adopt electric vehicle technology. So therefore, technologists of today and tomorrow who are present in this debate need to keep in mind that whatever technology is available, that should be comparable to the existing technologies, not one-on-one, but probably to some extent. So if I take 10 minutes to fill my car with gasoline, if my fast charger can charge the battery of my car in, say, 30 minutes, I'm fine with that. But if it is charging in 8 hours, probably there will be inhibition on my part to adopt that technology. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, my main point was to raise some pointers. My main point was to create some of these posers for speakers who will speak after me, and try to create a more sustainable and better world which we live in and which will live for our future generations. So thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you very much, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me. I hope that these sessions will be useful for the well-being of the world, for the global good. And I wish everyone all the success for this conference and wish them good health. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We really appreciate you joining us today. What a fantastic opening address for our annual Congress. We do just have a couple of minutes in the schedule if anybody's got any questions for the Ambassador at all. Nothing's popped up in the chat, but if you wish to ask any questions, feel free to raise your hand, or we can move straight into the main body of our session. I can't see any hands So I'm assuming everyone's just raring to get going with our presentations today. So thank you very much. Thanks to our opening addresses. And now I'm going to hand you over to our chair for today's session. So today our session is being hosted by King Mongkut University of Technology Thornburi, who are one of our founding members here at WTUN. And chairing today's session is Tassaneewan Laksanasopin. So I'm going to hand over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia. So as we all may have been aware that energy system transformation for a carbon neutral future is currently an important challenge globally. That's why we are all here today listening to this session, right? And in the next 10 to 20 years, the climate imperatives and global energy system transformation will disrupt energy industry in several dimensions, including technical, ownership and actors, markets and business models, and regulations. Different innovations, both technical and non-technical, and the integration of innovations are needed to create solutions to drive the uptake of renewables and energy efficiency. So university can play a significant role in meeting these challenges by building capacity through the development of knowledge and supply of research and development, as well as highly educated and skilled human resources to develop and implement energy and climate solutions. So welcome everyone to the first session today in the title of Energy System Transformation for a Carbon Neutral Future. We honor to have 8 speakers presenting their case study of local projects related to renewable energy integration and energy storage, sustainable bioenergy, and smart energy efficiency. So for more information about each speaker, you can find that on Congress website. So each case study will have roughly 10 minutes to present and followed by 5 minutes discussion. Now let's begin our session with Associate Professor Dr. Suneerat Fukuda from King Mongkut University of Technology Thonburi in the title of Workforce Development and Capacity Building Partnership to Support Carbon Neutral Transition in Thailand and Southeast Asia. If Dr. Suneerat is ready.
Okay.
Please welcome.
Thank you very much, the chair, Ajahn Tassaneewan. I would like to share my screen. I hope everyone can see this. And good afternoon, good morning to everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, today I will not talk deep into detail on the scientific research project, but rather I would like to present a kind of initiative program that we would like to propose to this network, and then see if we can collaborate somehow. The title of my talk is Workforce Development and Capacity Building Partnership to Support Carbon Neutral Transition in Thailand and Southeast Asia. I'm Suneerat Fukuda. I'm from the Joint Graduate School of Energy and Environment, King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi, Thailand. And I'm very pleased to be the representative of the King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi, to present about this one. Before I go into the program that I was mentioning, I would like to introduce a little bit about the King Mongkut University of Technology, Thonburi. As you can see on this left-hand side, we have 4 campuses. The main campus is the Bangkuntien. The main campus is Prachautthit campus. And we have the Bangkuntien campus, which is about half an hour drive from the main campus. So this campus, we have a lot of area for the incubation, for the research, and we also have the National Biopharmaceutical Center and some other faculties here. We have the residential college in Ratchaburi campus, around 1.5 hour drive from Bangkok, where they have the area-based research. One of the well-known research is on bees, and also they also apply the new way of teaching to the students here. And also the newest campus is we call the Knowledge Exchange Center, which is in the city, easily accessible from the city. And this is also the place where we try to create the innovation, the collaboration between the university and industry. We have a lot of private companies, startups here in this working in this building together with the university. And university is also has a sustainable policy because one of our main goals is to become the sustainable university, complying to the sustainable development goals. And also recently we have also set another strategic goal, which is the KMUTT race to zero by 2040. And when we look at the KMUTT, we are a medium-sized university, around 15,000 students. We have 2,500 staff, 11 academic faculties. We have both regular and international programs, in total around 50. And one of our pride for the country rank, we were the first in Thailand in engineering and technology for the 3 consecutive years. And in terms of sustainability, for the THE impact ranking, we were the 54th in the world in terms of the total SDGs, and also the first in the world for the SDG 7, which is the related to energy. And in terms of research in KMUTT, we have the 7 strategic research themes, but the one related to the energy research, as you can see here, we do a lot of renewable energy, not only renewable energy research, not only for technology development inside the university, but also we apply to the community, society, like the examples on here. We help the community in the remote areas to have the accessible to power by the solar panel, wind energy, and also the water turbine. We did some study on the energy efficiency in building. We do some studies on the electric vehicle, and also something on the smart city, like the vehicle to grid integration. And also for the sustainable bioeconomy, we also do some work on the sustainable biofuels, or the use of some computational modeling to develop or to solve the problem or the energy related. And then I would like to introduce a little bit on the JGSCE, the faculty where I'm working. Actually, the JGSCE is a consortium of 5 universities led by the KMUTT, as you can see in the picture on the left side. We work with the Chiang Mai University, Sirinthorn Institute, Sirinthorn International Institute of Technology at Thammasat University, King Mongkut University of Technology, North Bangkok, and Prince of Songkhla University. We work together among the researchers in energy and environment, in the education and research. So the purpose is for this consortium is to enable high-profile master and doctoral researchers through research and professional based higher education. So we offer 4 international programs at the PhD and the master level. So we accept both Thai and the foreign students. And now the number of foreign students get higher and higher. So I think now currently we have around 35% of foreign students enrolled in our program. And also we offer the scholarships to all the qualified students. And in terms of research directions, we focus on the energy and environment in 3 directions. First is the energy technology. So for the energy technology, we focus on bioenergy and biorefinery, energy efficiency in buildings, and renewable energy technologies like solar and wind, and also some renewable energy integration to the national grid. And for the environment and climate science, we look at the greenhouse gas emission, greenhouse gas inventory, and also the greenhouse gas mitigation, as well as the aerosols. We look at the PM 2.5 mitigation, and also we look at the waste management. And another one in the policy research, we look at the holistic picture of the energy and environment. We are specializing in the life cycle and sustainability assessment, and also the energy and environment policy. So now I would like to say a few words. Why do we come up with this workforce development and capacity building program? I have to also thank my senior colleague, Professor Bandit Phungthamasan, who initiated this program. And because we think that now there's needs for the climate action and also the change of the industrial landscape. So now we have seen a lot of climate crisis. So it's a problem on the global scales, and many countries in the world are thinking on the race to the net zero greenhouse gas emission to become the carbon neutral. So and also in Southeast Asia, because in Southeast Asia in the past decade, we have seen a lot of climate change impact, the climate risks like the storm or the drought. Yeah, so the problem become very serious in many countries, and to become the carbon neutral, the transition to low carbon energy, we need the transition to low carbon energy economy and society. So what do we have to do? Yeah. First is to decarbonize the power sector by expanding support for renewables and making power more reliable. So I think we all know that the use of the high ratio of renewable energy integration to the grid can make the grid less stable, because the renewable energies like solar and wind are like coming intermittently. So the need of the smart grid, the need of the more robust system development will be necessary. And next is a shifting away from fossil fuels, because in this region we are relying on fossil fuels a lot, like in coal in Indonesia. In Thailand we are relying on the natural gas a lot as well. So we have to reduce the use of the fossil fuels. We have to scale up the energy efficiency. We have to reduce the carbon footprint, the greenhouse gas in the consumption and production of products and services. So this is in line with what the ambassador has mentioned about the life cycle assessment. So yeah, the carbon footprint for the products and for the organization or for the supply chain will become very important now due to the cross-border trading. Now if we have to export some products to Europe, for example, we have to be aware of the carbon footprint of that product. And also the last one is to apply the circular economy to increase resource efficiency, close material loops, and improve sustainable materials management. So and in Thailand, I just want to give the example in Thailand. Thailand has announced the carbon neutral strategy, and we target to achieve the carbon neutral in 2065 to 2070. So by this is the first impact is on the energy use, and so we also plan to have the renewable energy. 50% of the power production will be by renewable energy in the next revision of the power plan of Thailand. So all of this that I have mentioned, so it's very obvious that we have a need for the workforce with the right skills, which is for current and the future scenario, to obtain and maintain employment. And also that we can see a lot more requirement for the lifelong learning in order to cope with the fast pace of the technology change. Because the technology, when we talk about the carbon neutral strategy, we talk about 20, 30 years later. So people should be able to do the lifelong learning. Yeah. So now we can see a lot of needs again for the education reform, because now as you will all know, in the academic institution, we talk a lot about the needed skill in the 21st century. So in order to survive and in order to be employed, I think the soft skills are equally important to the hard skills. And also the lifelong learning, as I mentioned, so people must be able to be reskilled and upskilled, or even have the new skills for the future. Yeah. And another skill, as you can see, a lot of startups nowadays, or to have the entrepreneurial mindset for their own company work. Yeah. So with this, we just propose the the program called the WDCB, the Workforce Development and Capacity Building Partnership to support carbon neutral transition in Thailand and Southeast Asia. And the objective is to support and facilitate efforts to advance and accelerate carbon neutral transitions in Thailand and countries in Southeast Asia. Okay, so this will be the coordination between the government agencies, of course, universities, the government agencies, and as well as the industry. So for the strategic sector of focus, there are 5. One is the power system transformation, as the ambassador mentioned about the consumer, the regulators, and power system transformation is one of the good example that now people will be able to produce their own power from their own home. So from consumer, they become the prosumer, but the government or the state electricity generation will be the regulator. So they will have to try to adapt these kind of things in order to develop the system for the future. The second one is on the sustainable biofuels, because biomass is the one of the most important renewable energy sources in the world, not only in Thailand and this region. Yeah, so, but how we can produce and the bioenergy in a sustainable way. So the sustainability means they will not affect on the ecosystem. Yeah, for example, if they produce energy, they will not do the deforestation or the monoculture plantation. So they have to think about the sustainability issue as well. And the third is on the energy efficiency in buildings, industry, and transport. Yeah. And the last one is also important, the circular economy and carbon footprint reduction. Yeah. As I mentioned, when we look at the energy production, we have to also think about their life cycle cost, the externality cost, the impact on the environment, economic, and society. And the fifth one is the cross-cutting issues. Because when the energy transition happen, it cannot be done immediately. So we need to study how to make the transition happen in the good way, where everyone will have less affected. And so for the capacity building, we look at the master and the PhD program. So this is a bit more traditional, but we think about the work integrated learning or the research oriented program. Yeah. And the second one is on the upskilling, reskilling programs. So this can be a kind of tailor-made course, short course for the industry, for what the industry really needs. And the third one is on the entrepreneurship in energy and environment. And the last one is on the collaborative research and innovation. Yeah. And so, but another point is on so we can train the trainers. So this the person can also be the resource person to train the next generation. And so in order to conduct or establish that kind of program, we will need the kind of international collaboration. So as JGC is also a small network inside inside Thailand, so we need to have the local consortium. We would like to have the additional partners with the critical expertise, especially like on the modern power system. And also we would like to also invite the international partner for the technical assistance for the operational support. So now we are also trying to discuss with the many agencies like the USAID or the GIZ or the ADB. Yeah. So and also in order to drive this consortium or drive this capacity building program, we look for the local funding agencies, international funding agencies, as well as the industry. And before I finish my presentation, I would like to also mention to you about the conference that JGC and the partners will organize next year, in November next year. This is a biennial conference. This is already the eighth time. So the theme of this conference is the road to net zero, energy transition challenges and solution. This will be the hybrid event, so you can attend online as well as on site. And the major topics are, as you can see here. Yeah, so all of you are cordially invited to this conference. So we will give you more detail when it's available. And I would like to thanks for your kind attention. Thank you. If you have any question, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Suneerat. So in case that we still have 1 to 2 minutes before we move on to the next speaker, so if any of the audience have any quick question, feel free to type in the chat, or you can put your hands on, or put your hands up, and you can ask questions. Okay, there might not be any questions now. But just to let you know that from KMUTT, we will also have a little bit of discussion on this initiation towards the end of the session today as well. If you have, throughout the session today and you develop more questions, or you want to collaborate on anything, we will have the last part of the session for discuss on that initiation. Okay, so I would like to move on to the next speaker. For the next speaker, we have Dr. Fernando Carreras from University of Applied Science, Upper Austria, in the title of The Potential of Cost Reduction in Energy Communities. If Dr. Fernando ready, you can start your presentation.
So, do you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, the title of my presentation is the development of a tool to analyze the economic viability of energy communities. this tool is a software tool, and it was developed in the frame of the new Austrian law for development of renewable energies. And for this reason, I have divided my presentation in the following points. I want to introduce a couple of things about the new Austrian law for development of renewable energies, and particularly I'm going to devote some time to explain how energy communities inside of this law are defined. And after that, I'm going to explain a little bit about the inside of the tool and how it works. And after that, I want to present some this case with the real values, and yeah, at the end I will finish with some conclusions about the experiments and the future work. So the first part is the new law, the new Austrian law for development of renewable energies. And there are 2 points, two very important points, and the objectives for the next 10 and 20 years. In 9 years, all the whole electricity consumption in Austria must be produced from renewable sources inside from Austria. And it means that is supposed to save around 10 million tons of CO2 emissions. And the second point is that the 18 years should be also, there must be Austria climate neutral. Well, for the objective of 2030, it is necessary to increase the production of renewable energies around to 27 terawatts hour. And this will be divided in solar energy, hydrodynamic power, wind energy, and biomass. In our case, there is some, as of the current production are 2 terawatt hours from solar energy, and well, there is significant increment of the production is supposed to increment that. So this new law fixes not only the objectives, so, but also how it is going to be producers is going to use to introduce the energy communities. The energy communities are defined inside of this law. Energy communities can be considered as the special case of smart grids, and well, quite schematically, we see here a community with n participants. Participants could be private persons, family with having at home some PV, for instance, or also industrial partners, small and medium companies, and they can play different roles. They can be producers, but they could be also only consumers. In this case, we see for a single participant, we have here, this is a very simple case. We have the participant 1 is producing some energy, is able to sell and to buy electricity from the grid, and so also to provide, as to buy and sell electricity inside of the community. And of course, the participant 1 must try to has to satisfy some electricity demand. So with X are defined defined the energy flows to compute, and there are some special features or requirements. Only renewable energy can be shared and traded inside of the community. Renewable energy produced inside of the community. And only renewable energy can be sold to the grid. And so if one participant will be provided with some battery and will not be allowed to charge the battery from the grid, and after that, depending on different time prices, to sell the electricity to the grid. Well, in a general case of an energy community, there are different kind of loads, not only electric loads, but also heat and cool. Storage technologies are considered. That can be electricity, so batteries, water tanks, and so on. There are also considered transformation technologies, power to heat, and so on. And there are two economical aspects that are the energy prices. The energy prices from the grid could be different. If you are a particular person, you're going to get some price. And if you are a company, maybe you are getting a different price. It depends on the consumption. And also, we consider a dynamic variation of the prices. That's a very important thing, because one particularity of the new law is that you are able to arrange the prices inside of the community. So different participants are going to sell with different prices. And the reason is this, well, not all the participants are investing the same money in the technologies. So for this reason, it would not be fair if all the participants were sharing also the electricity with the same prices. And at this point, the main question we try to solve is for a given energy community, which is the optimal strategy to reduce costs and also CO2 emissions, taking into account all the legal and technical specifications imposed by the law. And based on this, on an optimization problem, more questions want to be answered. The first one is the energy community viable? So input data are the technologies, the energy loads, and so on. And well, with certain prices are the economical aspects considered to answer if it makes some sense, the community. Second point is once that the community was analyzed, we can see how to increase the autarky of the community, which is the contribution of each participant, which technologies make sense, and well, and so on. The tool is not a planning tool, it's an analyze tool for planning. There are other tools that we can consider with our tool if some improvement in the constellation of technologies possible is. So the considered zwei optimization problems. This is a two-stage model. And the first case, as a base case, computes the optimal values for each participant alone. So for certain technology constellation, we want to optimize the cost. So if you have a battery, we want to answer which is the best time point to load the battery and when you can use the battery optimally. Well, the second optimization problem consider the whole community. It means we want to minimize the energy cost, but there is one restriction. Each participant must profit from the community. It means the individual cost of CO2 emissions inside of the community must be lower than the individual ones. And the individual ones were computed in the previous step under the reference values of the base case. So the first optimization problem computes for each participant and for time of origin t, and for the given individual costs associated to the different energy technologies, some objective function to minimize, and with this optimizations of the prices and so on, there will be the energy flows computed, and each energy flows for each time of point has a different price by buying or selling, and this is how we can compute or we can minimize this objective function. Then at the second step is it's going to be considered for all the participants with this restriction which is imposed by the base case. Well, I'm not going to describe any mathematical details about programming and so on, and I prefer to start with with a case. And we have energy community. We have a yearly consumption for all the participants. Some of them, they have some PVs, and we consider also of their private or industrial partners of the community. We have also input data based on historical data. We have electricity loads, an estimation of the PV production, and also consider that the prices are known. In this context, we have to define the prices. Those are the economic parameters, and we analyze the community with dates from a whole year with a 15 minutes time resolution. And in this specific case, we consider a different price difference of only 1 cent of euro for each kilowatt hour. So this is the buy prices for private and industrial are only 1 cent higher than inside of the community, and also the selling prices inside of the community are 1 cent of euro higher than to selling to the grid operator. With these results, we see this is the current cost without PVs technologies. At the first optimization step, we compute we optimize the costs for each individual participant, and here we see the results for all the participants inside of the community. We see that each participant is saving reducing the cost. Negative cost means that the participant is producing more than what is consuming, so it is selling more, and well, we see that also here they are selling more than before, and we can with this picture we see this is the code in red. Red is the amount of electricity that was bought from the grid. The green is the amount of electricity that was at each month bought from the community. The magenta is the magenta was both inside of the community, and green is self-consumed. Also, what is each producer consuming from their own resources, production resources, and this the cyan, or this is the what was sold to the community. So of course, this and this are always the same, because one is this is a sale and both inside of the community, and blue is the amount that was sold to the grid. Well, with this, in this case, we can see that the economical results. I said this is improving, reducing the cost of the whole community, and we can see that in that case there was too much both, and also in some months this is also too much both from the PV to the grid, and it is not used inside of the community. So we can here detect some improvement potential in the definition of technologies, and also in the definition from cost or different parameters of the community. So and the last term, some conclusions. The first one says that the Austrian law for development of renewable energies is not an isolated case. And I mean, with it, I want to mean that this model, this law, and this cooperation model can be exported everywhere. The second conclusion is that the tool based on the mixed internal linear programming methods was developed to analyze the economy, and it was used in real cases, and it provides some results that can be really applied for real economies. And the last one is that the energy community seems to be a promising way to increase the local autarky of these communities. They reduce the cost and also the CO2 emissions, and they prevent against blackouts. And at this point of the presentation, I arrive at the end of the explanation, and I want to say you thank you very much for your attention, and ask you if you have any question. I'm very happy to answer if I can do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fernando, for a very insightful project that try to implement and hopefully will be rolled out in a larger scale in the community, not only in Austria and hopefully around the world. So if any of the participants are having any questions, feel free to type in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we'll call you for questions. And while we are waiting for the questions, okay, yeah, please, Dr. Scharff.
Yes, thank you for your talk. Very interesting. I'm a big supporter of smart grids because I think this is a real possibility of providing the delivery of energy. In your model of the community, there are only few participants. Is it enough to let's say to fight against the blackout, for example, if you have only very few participants in such an energy community?
In our model, we are considering some of the real cases, and real cases means that we take into account some, for instance, some municipality. Close for us, we have developed some projects, and the values of this presentation are real values, and well, it depends. Also, in some cases, we have big consumers. And these consumers, if they are, for instance, if they are industrial partners, they can take fast almost everything from all the production produces from privates. Because the privates, family houses, for instance, they are along the working day, what they are producing is mostly sold. And during the working time of one day, the consumers, industrial consumers, are able to take this electricity. But this is it depends from case to case. It's not always the same. So for certain municipalities, they wanted the municipality to invest a lot of money in the installation of PVs, and they offered up really big areas from buildings and so on, and I mean roofs of buildings from mayor house or from sport places and so on. But we have analyzed that there are not enough consumers. So in that case, maybe it's not, it makes any sense to install such amount of PVs. So this is something that it depends on the participants. We have developed cases, we have analyzed cases where almost 90% of the produces electricity is going to be consumed on the same place.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next speaker, due to our limited time, so just a friendly reminder that we have roughly 10 minutes for each speaker. And for the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to type your questions in the chat, and I can help reading out that at the end of the speaker presentation. So moving on to our next speaker, also from University of Applied Sciences, Upper Austria. Ms. Gayaneh Issayan will be speaking in the title of Thermochemical Energy Storage Applications and Materials. Please welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you and good morning from cloudy Austria. My talk is titled Thermochemical Energy Storage Applications and Materials. I would like to give a quick overview of thermal energy systems and material groups, and will then move on to the material development results in our facilities for past 3 years. And finally, I will present my current research interests. So thermal energy storages are crucial for a successful renewable energy transition and can be utilized to balance the solar mismatch between day and night or the seasons, or in industrial settings, in waste heat generation, or simply just to support the electrical grid in power to heat applications. Generally, thermal energy storages can be categorized in 3 main groups. First being the sensible storages, where the heat capacity of a material, such as water or stones, is used to store the energy as a temperature difference. The image below is an example of a large-scale seasonal thermal storage in Denmark using water for district heating. The second group would be the latent heat storage group, where the heat is stored in a phase transition of a material at a constant temperature and can be released by motivating a phase transition. Phase change materials are used for solar refrigeration or cooling applications, but also in encapsulated form in construction materials. The third group would then be the thermochemical heat storages, which we are going to present today. Basically, the charging step in a thermochemical material is to separate 2 phases, 2 components of a system by introducing heat. Storage system would be solely to keep those 2 components separate. And when the heat is required, to bring those 2 components back together in an exothermal process and release the heat. We differentiate 2 main processes, liquid and solid sorption. Sorption being the process of binding gas molecules or taking in the gas molecules. Depending on if the molecules are taken into the structure, we would call them in form of a chemical reaction or absorption. Popular materials are salts or metal hydrates for that procedure. Or in case of a solid adsorption, the gas molecules are binded to the surface. For this, for solid adsorption, zeolites or silica gels are often used, as they are porous materials and have a high surface to volume ratio. Beside the processes on material level, for reactor design or storage design, we should clarify the systems. So we can operate a thermochemical storage as an open system, where we place the material, the storage material, in an open vessel or open reactor, dry the material by a hot air, for example, for a solar thermal installation, getting rid of the moisture, and then seal the material. And when the heat is required, introduce a cold wet air. The process is the same for closed systems, yet this time we have a closed pressurized vessel, and we need a condenser evaporator unit to manage the mass flow and the humidity. So in the open systems, we have the advantages of using ambient air humidity. We have fewer components, simple reactors, which leads to lower cost, yet we have difficulties in material exchange. In closed systems, we can use various adsorbents, not only the water, the humidity in the air, but we can also use methanol or ethanol, which have different properties. But we have strong technical constraints regarding reactor design, the valve systems, and we need an evaporator condenser unit, and this leads to a higher cost. There are three main groups of reactor beds. We have a fixed reactor where the material is just placed, and we have moving reactors or evolving reactors where the material is moved to achieve higher mass flow to the material. And we have a third kind, the fluidized bed, where the material is moved by the flow. So I have chosen applications. First one is an open and moving reactor application in our laboratory. The second one is an open and fixed demonstration project in Stuttgart called in Project Soul Spaces. And there are closed and fixed demonstration projects from IE Intec and from ZE Bayern, where first a salt is used, and the second one is a truck with a mobile storage with zeolites as a storage material. So all of them are very interesting projects, and I can talk about it if you have any questions, specific questions. Generally, microporous materials are used from 70s for thermochemical storage applications. Those are tailored structures, especially the synthetic zeolites or metal organic frameworks. They are robust, cyclable, come mostly in practical granular form, so it can be handled very easily. Yet they have a very high cost and are the very high primary energy demand. So the next group would then be the salt hydrates. Here we can see the figure shows the volumetric thermal energy storage capacity of various storage materials. The volumetric is important because there are volume limitations quite everywhere. And we can see that the sensible and PCMs have a very low volumetric storage capacity, and salt hydrates and chemical reactions show quite high energy densities. And also they come in broad variety and can be purchased as waste or byproducts, which makes it very low cost products. So why don't we have salt storages yet? Mainly because of the mechanical instability of materials, low melting temperatures, agglomeration. There are very small temperature range between charge and discharge, should be improved for every salt type. And they have very poor cyclability because of crystal defects during charging and discharging. So the idea was to combine the advantages of zeolites and salt hydrates in a low cost and low primary energy composite form. So we went on to process this kind of composites. We have chosen calcium chloride and lithium chloride as salt hydrates and natural zeolites as porous host structures. And we granulated and pelletized them ourselves with hydraulic binders and fiber additives. And the results were very successful. We have performed break resistance measurements and abrasion measurements, and of course, performed absorption capacity measurements. And we could say that our composites performed quite well. Now we can see some pictures and the evolution of our research. On the bottom, we see, as we started, the form stability of granules in case of overhydration, it would melt, and we gradually were able to produce granules and pellets in large-scale processing manner with favorable sorption properties and very high mechanical stability. And during our research, we were able to see very interesting and favorable properties when we mixed two salts, in our case, lithium chloride and calcium chloride. We would achieve higher sorption capacities by adding very small amount of lithium chloride to the calcium chloride. We can see the 100% calcium chloride on the bottom with red stars. And only by adding 10% lithium chloride, we would already achieve about double as high sorption capacity. We can see that in green stars. And this was very interesting because there is not much research done regarding salt mixtures. And I will be doing my PhD thesis on this. So I will now summarize. We were able to develop side-hydrated composites with stability by fiber reinforcement and incorporating high salt content. And the sorption capacity of our composites were comparable to commercial zeolites. And we have suitable processing methods for mass production. There is more work to do by investigation of salt systems and mixtures for further improvement and continuous introduction of new binders. And of course, we're moving on now to do bulk material testing. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Gayaneh, and thanks for a very informative presentation and with the very exciting, promising new material or composites, right, that hopefully we'll be able to apply to various applications regarding the energy storage in the very near future. So if there are any questions, we still have a couple minutes before we're going on a break. Or if you have any last word that you would like to share about your exciting work for your PhD.
Yeah, I'm really excited because the other colleagues are also looking closer into salt mixtures and salt systems. And we are really hoping to achieve more sophisticated salt mixtures by just using the bulk of a lower cost salt and just by doping or by just adding small amounts of superior salts to achieve higher, better sorption capacities. And of course, the next steps are also very interesting because we are now testing the material in kilogram batches on our test bench and doing some calorimetric analysis of the material, which is then going to be translated in actual storage terms.
There's still a lot of characterization that you have to carry out. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Good luck with that, and I'm
Thank
sure
you
that
very
you will
much.
finish that very soon.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So if we don't have any other questions for now, we will go on to our break, and we will come back at 9:45 UK time. So we have roughly about 12 minutes break. So we will come back at 9:45 UK time. So you can have a quick break for water and bathroom, and I'll see you guys back in a few minutes. Our session is entitled of Energy System Transformation for Carbon Neutral Future. Today we have 8 speakers with us, and we are on speaker number 4. Please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Worawat Meevasana from Suranaree University of Technology in the title of Suranaree University of Technology Experience in Energy System Research and Innovation for a Carbon Neutral Future. Please welcome Dr. Worawat.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for inviting to this talk. So yes, I come from Suranaree University of Technology, and this is part of the presentation. Part of the presentation will be from the project called NC Khao Yai. So which I explain a little bit more in the next few slides. So talk about the NC. We basically most of the work is done at the called the Khao Yai National Park. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Thailand, so it's quite a big national park area, which is a home to many animals and also a big forest that be the water source for many parts of the northeastern part of Thailand. So for the acknowledgement, so this is funded by the Suranaree University of Technology, also nanotech from NASA, and also AFN is a center in Suranaree University. So at the work together with the Khao Yai National Park as well. And then there are some other parts that are additional to this, and we'll introduce in along the way. So as you see in this picture, it's quite nice, and if you have been to Thailand before, this is one of the places that I recommend you to visit. It's not very far from our university, it's about 1.5 hours. So I go there quite often and enjoy the environment there, atmosphere there. So, and then there's a part that this talk is be about energy. So for my own motivation, there's a lot of things that I listen to the talk at the Singapore University conference for that first go in Thailand. They mentioned about the leap forward in energy, maybe just to go to solar and wind power, and also no grid, so not use a big power plant. And this is I forgot to mention that I am a physicist, which is also to be specific. I study a lot of quantum state in matters or quantum technology, and how would that relate to this energy. I will not talk about that, but maybe the last few slides I explained you a little bit. But that's anyway. I with the come into this area, I quite into this problem of how to manage energy better, and also how to decentralize the things that maybe in this part would reduce the use of energy from the grid that actually produce a lot of, because in Thailand use a lot of fuel from petroleum and also added coal, and they produce a lot of carbon dioxide, which also align with this. But to this part, right? We quite know well that I don't need to explain a lot more that using the renewable energy or solar cell will reduce a lot of carbon dioxide. And so it's also in terms of economics, it's also quite nice because solar cell is quite cheap now. So it's only about 3 cents per kilowatt hour now, the cost of solar cell. But still there's some limitation that if you want to use during the day, it's okay, but during the night, that's a problem because energy storage is still in commercial product is still cost quite high. But we also, our part is try to reduce this cost and try to explore in existing technology and also do customization to make it possible. Right. So in terms of our part, so the solar system that we are focused on is not a type of on-grid. On-grid is without energy storage. It just uses. This is actually quite efficient now in Thailand. A lot of factories use this on-grid to save the cost of electricity bill, right? That's although a lot of people are doing that. So we not focus on that part. We focus on the off-grid or hybrid. That this with a big room or the problem of the on-grid is that you need to be hooked up to the grid, right? Like the name, right? You cannot use it in the big forest where there is no electricity line, or you cannot decouple from the main system. But if you use off-grid, basically you can run on that. But if you also connect to the grid, it's not so helpful in certain parts. So we are focused on this, which with that using the energy storage to do things. So we do the comparison of the different type of energy storage that existing. There's a type of lead acid and also lithium based that we utilize that. We not focus on the cost of battery per kilowatt hour or the capacity, but we focus on the cost of the baht or the US dollar per kilowatt hour per cycle. That's the part that we add to the cost of electricity that we use for each unit, right? And with that, to just skip to the end a little bit, then so this is part of my little project at home, and so I try to make the isolated house that which connect, is fully off-grid. So and with a capacity that you can run and you can manage water, you can open the air conditioner without a problem. In Thailand it's quite hot, so during the days it would be nice to have air conditioning. So this is no problem. During the day, it's no problem, and also during the night you can use. But with certain, and the unit is quite small. It's only 1 meter tall and about 50 half a meter wide. And this is the part on the right hand side. So that's the solar cell. So this can run for and the nice part that so if you look at the cost perspective. So in Thailand, the electricity bill is cost about 11 cents per kilowatt hour. But if we use the system that we tested at our university with energy storage, so if you back up only 60%, mean that 40% during the day you just use it up, keep only 60%. The cost would be only about 7 cents per kilowatt hour. Or you fully back up, then it's only 9 cents per kilowatt hour. This is with the help of the longer life of the battery that we utilize. So this is a reduction in cost about 20 to 40% already for the Thai utility comparison. So with this knowledge, then we try to apply to other things. And so of course we build my house first, and but we want to make it bigger, and the part of the NC project that many people are involved. Tomorrow there will be a longer talk or marginal talk on that and bigger picture. So we go to Khao Yai National Park. Then so to see that how we can do two things. So first is for my motivation that the cost reduction is one thing, and also the green or environment saving is another part. Because when you go to Khao Yai, of course you don't want to go to the big car and then a lot of smoke coming out from your car and it ruined all the nice part about the national park, which is quite nice already. You want to keep it nice and green and for energy. And also another aspect that we go to survey, and then we see also problem that because in the national park, often of time there's a big rain, the tree will fall off, cut the electricity line. So very often the electricity will be down at the Khao Yai National Park. So this is another problem that we try to solve. So we can go survey and then look in, and for my part, look into two parts, that how solar cell energy storage can be helped, and also the EV part as well. So and then we go and after we have some survey, we also pick up. It doesn't move. Okay, we go to the camping site. So this actually I forgot to put the pictures there. There's a popular camping site in Khao Yai National Park that's at the high season. There could be like up to 1,000 tourists that go to camping site. But during the COVID, the number is limited because of the restriction. But anyway, so this camping site, there's a lot of people that come to enjoy the forest, the scene of the park, but also they still has a feeling that the need of, like, for example, like charging your mobile and you cannot stay for so long. So there's a part that is open up for charging of the battery, or some people also do the cooking with the electricity pan or something like that job. And then also this camping site also with the battery, they can run during the night, especially when there's a power shortage. So or there's some accident in the power line. So this is the part that already installed and then seem to be quite cost effective, and also in terms of utilize the part, that new function to the system. Then also the part that evolved is coming out from the Khao Yai. That's also part of the EV that there's a startup at our university called EQTech Energy. So they also work on the mini EV part for battery, that mostly one part it will be replacing of the lead acids, which not inefficient battery, and also is also toxic from the lead. So this is running, but to my part, that there's a lot more detail, but to be short, there's the part of this, the nice part of this is that you can not only be the environmental saving, the green energy, there also in terms of economic part is quite nice as well, because if you look at save the reduce the emission of carbon dioxide, that's one part of sure. So in terms of economic reason is that I think this slide is very attractive. If you use the petroleum or the gasoline bike, the cost will be a lot higher than the EV bike. So we estimate that if, for example, each day you can run about 100 kilometers over a year with the EV bike, you can save up to about $1,200 per year. So this is, if you use for 2 years, you can buy a new bike, very nice EV bike from that. So it's a 2-year even breaking point that you switch from the gasoline bike to EV bike, and of course the bike is a lot nicer with the acceleration and car. So this is the part that we also run this and then go back to Khao Yai. So we are also doing survey how to use this for, but its initial phase will not be for the general tourists, but be more on the ranger, the national park ranger. So we install 2 bikes first for the first round, and these are the part that we doing it right now. But prototype is ready. Then we just need to install into Khao Yai National Park. So the maximum speed can go up to 80 kilometers per hour, and also the distance from full charging will be about 120 kilometers. So it's very nice, and you can use this in Khao Yai area. So for now, for this part, we will contribute no carbon dioxide in that aspect, and also the acceleration and this part would be quite nice as well. Another part that we'll be working on right now, but there are some part that we go to also survey surround Khao Yai National Park in the farming area for smart farming. So we see that these are opportunities that they can use in smart farming to reduce the cost. Also, for example, or one thing would be, for example, you use the pumping system. So these are 2 reasons. So a lot of problem that many places they don't have electricity to use at the on-site. Some do, of course, but when we don't need electricity, of course, the function of smart farming will be quite limited. So that can go in that part. But even they have the electricity using the solar cell, they can also save a lot of money from that as well. So there's like the farming for fishing. So there's in this kind of picture they to put the oxygen in the water, because there are actually a lot of fish in there, so you need to add oxygen real time, right? And often of time they just use the engine, the gasoline engine, and then produce a lot of carbon dioxide. You can reduce this and also reduce the cost with the solar cell and energy storage. So we try to do this. The problem with, of course, is another finance aspect. That's technical part is, I think it's quite clear that you can save the cost from that, but initial investments do some often. Come to the last part. This is, I don't have much time, but as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a physicist, quantum theory physicist to be precise. So actually we work on as we see the application in many aspects, I come back to the fundamental problem: how to increase the efficiency of battery and could it be cheaper and more efficient battery. So we are also working on that. There's a call. The funny things or strange thing, I should say, there's a state called negative electronic compressibility. It's more like you add the water to glass, but the more you add the water in the glass, the water level keeps lower. And this, of course, that would be magic. But if you change water to electricity, to electron, you can make it happen. And then you can basically, we see that you can increase the energy capacity of, in this case, it's energy storage I call supercapacitor. You can add it up to 200% with almost no cost of the material that go to enhance this. So this is another maybe a longer term part that we try to make the better battery or better energy storage that come in. But for now, the many applications that I mentioned that's already been useful, not only reduce the carbon dioxide emission, but also help the community for the economic reason that you can save a lot of money from that and make. With the two things, I'm sure that will be a lot more application that we add to the community. Yeah, thank you for your attention. So if you are interested, you also can email me with this address. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Worawat. Thanks for your inspiring pilot project on utilizing PV and EV in Khao Yai area, right? Not just for living, but also towards the smart farming. And the last part that I think a lot of people might want to listen to your talk for future discussion on the quantum technology for enhancing the energy storage. I think that one is also very exciting and interesting for your future development. Any questions from the audience? Okay, I think if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat, right? And we also have the last section of this session for the discussion. If you have further questions or anything you would like to discuss with all among our speakers, we will also have that time as well. Okay, then we will move on to our next speaker. Dr. Indrajit from Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science in the title of Artificial Photosynthesis, a Novel Green Technology for Photochemical Carbon Dioxide Reduction to Solar Fuels. Please welcome Dr. Indrajit.
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you for kind introduction. I'm Dr. Indrajit. My slide can see? Can you see my slide? Yeah, okay,
yes,
thank you. Today my talk is basically artificial photosynthesis, a novel green technology for photochemical CO2 reduction to solar fuel. I'm from Department of Chemistry in the Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science. We locate south part of India, Chennai, the main city. And today, basically, this is the outline of my talk. First of all, a little bit of an introduction of this topic. Then I will discuss about little bit carbon neutral future energy. Then I'll put the importance why artificial photosynthesis is required. Then I am discussing about the CO2 reduction design strategy if I have a time, and obviously the catalytic performance and overall remarks. The first of all, that current scenario is that we need a huge amount of energy. Every day we require huge amount of energy. For that energy generation, obviously it will coming from the various sources. But still energy we are getting from the fossil fuel. If we are burning huge amount of fossil fuel, it's release a lot of CO2. And if we look at this graph, from 1965 to 2010 and so on, the concentration is still increasing in same order, like increasing the energy demand. Therefore, a lot of environmental issue also happened due to increasing the CO2 emission. And that's why global warming, this is the one major cause of the CO2 emission, and also some climate change. And these are the things we scientists also thinking. And as a material scientist, we also need to think about how we can develop a technology that can convert CO2, not only generate the green energy. Therefore, actually, if you look at the CO2 emission, different sector, these are the different sector, and this is the CO2 emission if we divide it on that part. And then huge amount are coming from the fossil fuel. Therefore, we cannot ignore, we cannot totally convert into the green energy in a single day. Therefore, we need to develop some system to go for the green energy generation, as well as some technique we have to develop to control the CO2 emission. Okay. In this part, basically, there are a lot of green energy technology. These are called emerging green energy technology, like hydrogen fuel for as a fuel we can use to substitute the fossil fuel. And obviously the fuel cell is another energy generator, emerging energy generator. Then we can generate the energy from the wind also, other like solar power, we can put solar panel. But still, we cannot ignore the fossil fuel consumption. Therefore, CO2 need to convert in other form. Otherwise, we cannot control the CO2 emission. And that is the way energy systems transformation for a carbon neutral future, because based on only this system, we cannot reach that goal. We have to do something to convert the things. In my research area, basically, I'm focusing photocatalytic CO2 reduction, photoelectrochemical CO2 reduction, as well as electrochemical oxygen reduction reaction for fuel cell, also working on the hydrogen revolution reaction, so on. These are the all energy generation, as well as some lithium-ion battery for energy storage, because that also required time to time, we can store that energy. Now, question is that sustainable energy generation can only one solution? My answer is no. We can develop certain system that can convert CO2 to some useful chemical or fuel. Because CO2 is the most stable compound, it cannot convert easily. We need such a simple way to CO2 to convert it to useful way. If we look at this purpose, then there are a lot of ways like thermal, electrochemical, photochemical. But among these thermal and electrochemical need again that electricity or thermal power outside energy source. But photochemical, we can use the solar energy and we can convert the CO2 to useful chemicals. In this regard, if we look at this one, this chart basically shows the development timeline of CO2 catalytic technology, because next 5 to 10 years, basically electrocatalysis, CO2 reduction, and then photocatalysis is focusing topic. After that, next 5 to 10, later on 10 to 50 years, there is the biohybrid and nanoporous confinement technology should adopt for CO2 catalytic technology. And later on, the chain insertion and molecular machine technology used for CO2, because this one actually projected that we have to focus on this CO2 conversion for catalytic conversion or other way, we have to convert it. And for this purpose, we can adopt the techniques from the nature. Nature can easily do it. Nature converts CO2 in presence of light to glucose. Same way we can do, that is called artificial photosynthesis. In presence of semiconductor as a photocatalyst, we can capture the CO2 in presence of light and water. We can convert to some useful chemicals or fuels. And this is fundamental. I'll not go details about it. All of you know the semiconductor, how it is work. And these are the parameter, basically photocatalytic reduction basically is a multi-step reduction process, and each step several number of electrons involved in this process, and based on the number of electrons we can get different chemicals. That also is a beauty of this kind of photochemical reaction. And varieties of semiconductor photocatalyst is there, and based on that we can focus on the visible light. Basically my interest on focusing on the visible light, because we can use easily solar light and convert CO2 to other material or other chemicals. In this regard, various nanostructure we can introduce, lot of new material we can develop, and already I also work on this area almost more than 10 years, and we also developed different kind of material on it, 2-dimensional, 1-dimensional, and there are different design strategy for the photocatalyst, like these are the conventional doping, sensitization, then heterojunction, type 2, type 1, G-scheme. These are the varieties of technology we can or strategy we can follow. And in my research, basically focusing on the modified graphene oxide we use for photocatalytic CO2 reduction, then modified with copper nanoparticle, then later on we work on black TiO2 and black TiO2 modified or KCN also we work, and we develop a certain technique in gas phase that can easily convert CO2 to certain hydrocarbon like methanol or acetaldehyde. And later on we use the carbon dope SNS2, the 2-dimensional material, and that also shows very good efficiency. It's around 0.7% efficiency, and that is quite near to natural photochemical photosynthesis efficiency. And this is our reactor, basically is a homemade reactor. This is reactor, this is the solar light, and from here actual CO2 purging through the water and insert inside the reactor, and after reaction whatever the gas evolved we collect it and analyze through GC, and after analysis we can plot it. This is the carbon dope SNS2, shows very high efficiency, around 0.7 quantum efficiency. Still, this is very low compared to commercialization or commercial requirement, but still this 0.7% is most promising one. And later on we check, verify with different techniques. I'll not go through all the details. And recently we developed another one, heterostructure, basically to improve the performance. And here on zinc indium sulfide, zinc sulfide heterostructure, basically G-scheme heterostructure. And here also one interesting thing that we are getting around 1% efficiency. That is a very good achievement compared to the previous research, and we get selectivity of acetaldehyde is almost 98% selectivity, and we are getting methanol as a minor product. And still we are working on it, and overall the catalytic efficiency, catalytic stability, everything is reasonable, and it can go for further commercialization also. And this is the summary of my overall research, basically in the CO2 reduction. We started our journey from the modified graphene oxide, that is 2D material, and after that modify that with copper. And later on, because these are the common techniques, and later on introduce the 2-dimensional tin disulfide, and later on other zinc indium sulfide layer material, we found that is much better. And then if we go for heterostructure, their charge separation is much improved, and efficiency also we able to improve. And our target to get more methanol, acetaldehyde, and ethanol. These are the more useful chemical for further fuel application. Therefore, we are trying to reach the that is the more specific and selective product formation. And these are the remarks I will not go through. Basically, one is the interesting remark is that we are able to reach the quantum efficiency around 1%. And next, our target is to reach around 5%. And I think this is one option. We can control the CO2 emission and we can convert CO2 to some useful chemicals. And I have to acknowledge my international collaborator and student and also the funding agency. And this is my institute is very greenery. You can see a lot of greenery things is there. And this is center of Chennai and is a south part of India. Thank you. If you have any question, I'm happy to answer it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Indrajit. It is very exciting, and well, I mean, I haven't heard this idea before. So to me, it is very exciting that we can convert carbon dioxide to something more useful. And hopefully this technology can be developed further to commercialize and adopt in a larger scale very soon. So any questions from the audience? We still have a couple minutes left. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you for this fantastic talk. My question is, the conversion of CO2 into, let's say, a reduced form, this is the one problem. Yeah. The other problem is, let's say, the availability of CO2. I mean, your method, does it work also with distributed CO2, let's say taking CO2 from the atmosphere? Or do you need, let's say, a concentrated form of CO2? And if yes, what is your proposal to concentrate CO2 from the atmosphere?
Yeah, there are certain material that can capture the CO2 because we can use some porous material to capture CO2 from atmosphere, and that actually support with this catalyst. And then it will convert the capture CO2 to some chemicals. And if you use the concentrated, obviously it will improve the efficiency. Basically, this is the reaction, chemical reaction. If more CO2 molecule is there and more surface area, these are the parameters. Basically, these are the parameters we can work on for further commercialization. Because it's a very good future. Because not only a green energy generation, but also capture CO2 and conversion. That is another area we have to focus.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Alois.
Hello, good morning.
Hello.
From Austria. Thanks for your talk. I have just a question. I was wondering if you have some if you have already investigated the influence of the spectrum, of the solar spectrum that you provide to your conversion process on the efficiency. Meaning that do you really need the whole spectrum that the solar spectrum provides us, or would it be more efficient if you just limit it to a certain range of wavelengths?
Okay, that is a good question. Basically, I use solar simulator AM 1.5. That is equivalent to solar light. And because I'm not using specific wavelength, okay, if I use specific wavelength, then obviously efficiency is much higher. But I use the whole solar spectrum, and based on that, I focus on the visible light photocatalyst that only absorbs the 30. You know that 30 to 40% is a visible light. That's why efficiency-wise is low. And I use the solar simulator, the standard one that people use for solar cell application also.
Mm-hmm. All right, so there could be the potential to improve the efficiency if you would get the right spectrum. Okay.
Yes. Right. If I concentrate that also, because if you cut other area, like, okay, only 30% visible light, then obviously I use, because right now I use 100 photons, okay, then calculate the quantum efficiency based on that, how much we are getting. But if I use 30% only, then obviously efficiency will be twice.
Okay, thank you.
Any last question before we move to the next speaker? All right, might not be for now. Thank you again, Dr. Indrajit.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you. Next, our speaker, Dr. Alois Resch from University of Applied Science, Upper Austria, in the title of Optical Modeling of a Fresnel Mirror Field, Theoretical Results and Experimental Application. Please welcome.
Thank you very much. I should see my screen.
Yes.
Just give me a second. All right, now. Okay, so good morning from Austria again. I would like to talk today about the optical modeling of a Fresnel mirror field that I'm working on. I would like to give you some background of the project. So the project I am working on is about the development of mid-temperature PVT collector, a concentrating PVT collector. And PVT so basically means the combination of photovoltaic and thermal solar systems. And in this way, in this case, it is a concentrating one. And what is the motivation for that? It is nothing less than, as we are all aware of, we need more renewable heat and electricity, of course. But if we look to the very huge heat consumer, which is the industrial sector, then we see that there is a big lack of renewable heat yet. And the reason is that the industry, the industrial heat demand, does not require only 60 degrees centigrade, but way more. So 2/3 of the industrial processes require temperature levels higher than 100 degrees centigrade. And this is a temperature range where conventional solar thermal systems do have a certain challenge in terms of efficiency. So it's hard to provide temperatures beyond 100 degrees centigrade with non-concentrating systems. And this is why these concentrating collectors come onto the stage. And especially if we want to have a better utilization or more efficient utilization of these concentrating systems that of course cause a certain effort, then it makes sense to provide heat and electricity in once, if that's possible. And of course, it is a little bit challenging because if you have both together, both systems, the PV and the thermal energy conversion, then you have certain troubles with getting high efficiencies on both sides. And this is my main topic I'm working on. The basis for that is a Fresnel mirror field that is mounted on the rooftop of our university's campus. It is a Fresnel mirror field with a mirror surface of 11 square meters, dimensions of 2.3 times 5.8 meters. And it is, these mirrors, these 55 mirrors are controlled by a central rod and a servo motor. And now, as you can see, this is just a mirror field without the receiver yet. So the aim of the project is to design a CPVT receiver that is capable of providing up to 200 degrees centigrade in terms of temperature and thermal energy, but also electricity with maximum efficiency. And there is a certain approach called spectral splitting that deals with separation of the incident solar spectrum in order to provide just a spectrum range to the electrical part and the other spectrum range to the thermal part. And this is why I raised the question to the speaker before me, because I'm working with these kinds of filtering and spectrum splitting. But this is just the approach to come to reach my goal somehow. And before I started to think about the receiver design, I had to know how does this Fresnel mirror field perform in terms of optics. So I wanted to know, okay, what is how big the receiver has to be in order to receive, of course, all the reflected beams, and what would be the estimated irradiance that I can yield out of this field. And this is why an optical modeling, of course, had to take place. And this is what I would like to explain to you now. This optical modeling was done in MATLAB. So I set up a MATLAB model with a very general approach. So I did not want to be limited to my specific Fresnel mirror field, but I want to keep it as general as possible, meaning that I chose the inputs of the model very generally. So I'm flexible in the number of mirrors, for example. I am flexible in all the geometrics of the Fresnel mirror field, so I can choose the dimensions of the single mirror stripes, the gaps in between the mirror stripes, and the mounting position of the receiver, and so on and so forth. So I want to be flexible in all geometrical terms of this mirror field. Of course, the model is not perfect. I had to introduce some simplifications. Like, for example, I'm right now, I hope it will be improved in future, but up to now, I'm just considering parallel irradiance. I'm just considering planar mirrors, so they are not curved yet in my model. And I'm just limited to transversal incidence right now, because this was these simplifications were acceptable for my current stage of research. And the model outcomes so far are, let's say, satisfying for me right now. So I can now visualize the shading mechanisms in the Fresnel mirror field. And this is a typical characteristic of this Fresnel mirror fields. I can quantify the optical efficiency, and I know now theoretically what kind of radiance would be received by my receiver input plane. And I, of course, have all the geometrical data in terms of which angle the mirrors will be at certain elevation angles of the sun, and so on. To make it more clear for you, I simplified my specific mirror field to this cross section, giving you just an exemplary mirror field with 10 mirrors, just to make it easier to visualize it. And you see in orange the incident solar beams hitting one beam per mirror in order to make it visible. And also the receiver is very simplified to just this square. And if we consider this sun elevation angle 45 degrees, we see these incident sunbeams, and if everything goes well, then all the reflected beams meet in the center of the receiver. And of course, if the sun elevation is changing, then the mirrors are changing, done by our software tracking, and the reflected beams, of course, has to stay on the receiver. That's the goal. So this is the basic setup. But what I want to point out is that it's important to think about the shading mechanisms in the Fresnel mirror field, because this is a main characteristic compared to parabolic trough, for example. The Fresnel mirrors, as they are mounted in one plane, have this phenomenon that, for example, we see a mirror self-shading in the mirror field. Now a little bit hard to see, but if I zoom into the first two mirrors, then we see that the incident beam that hits this mirror produces a shade on the next mirror. So that this very left mirror is not enlightened in its total width, but a part of it is shaded by the adjacent mirror because a part of the incident beam is blocked. And of course, this depends on the elevation angle of the sun, so it's changing every minute. But this is the first shading mechanism that we see, this mirror self-shading. but there's another one called the mirror backwards shading, and this is related to the reflected beam. So not only the incident beam is blocked by the mirrors itself, but also the reflected beam. You can see this, that this now this dashed line is in parallel to the reflected beam. So the incident beam hits the mirror, but the reflected beam is blocked by the adjacent mirror. And again, you lose a certain part of this active mirror surface because the reflected beam does not reach the receiver anymore. So this is the second shading mechanism, the backwards shading. And there's a third one, the receiver shading, because at a certain elevation angle, the shade of the receiver itself starts to hit the mirror surface and covers one or two mirrors, depending on the geometry. And the last one depends, of course, again on the collector design as well, is the collector frame shading. It can be that the frame itself causes a shading, that the very last mirror, the edge mirror, is partly shaded by the collector frame itself. So all these four shading mechanisms together have to be considered, and of course they are sometimes overlapping each other. So this optical modeling was important to see for each elevation angle of the sun what kind of shading mechanism is influencing the optical performance of the system, in order to know what is the optical efficiency over a day, for example. And the result of it, for example, is the quantifiable result can be the optical efficiency that can be seen here. And this is the optical efficiency is a ratio between the maximum mirror width and the active one. So as I said, just not the entire width of a mirror is activated, is enlightened, but just, let's say, 70%, because the other 30% is shaded. And this depends on the elevation angle of the sun. And if you go through the elevation angles from 5 to 90 degrees, we see this characteristic. And what can be seen very clearly is this point where the receiver shade, for example, enters the mirror field, because then we see a certain degrees again until it starts to raise a little bit up to the vertical incident angle of the sun. A second quantifiable result is the irradiance that I am expecting on the receiver input plane. This, of course, also depends on the elevation angle of the sun. And here, just an example of elevation angle of 30 degrees. Then I would expect this characteristic of the irradiance on the receiver, again, depending on the position of on the X position on the receiver itself. It's not constant over the entire receiver, because all the mirrors, it's the mirror images, they are not constant by themselves. So it's a kind of an overlapping of the images, leading to this specific way of distribution of irradiance on the receiver input plane. What we can see here, for example, is disturbance produced by the collector frame itself. So here's just a part of the last mirror is missing, leading to this certain downward step in the overall irradiance. Now, what is the experimental use of this optical model? And one use of it is that in the mirror field that I showed you in the first slide, we saw that there was no receiver yet. And now that I knew how this mirror field would perform in terms of optics, I could specify the receiver mounting height, for example. So I could start to create a receiver carrier across the mirror field in the right height. And then we could start to adjust the mirrors one by the other in order to have the focus alignment again. Because of course the focus alignment depends on the receiver mounting height. If you change the mounting height, then you have to change the mirror, the mechanical adjustment of the mirrors. And this was done in a very experimental and pragmatic way. We used a laser diode, mounted this exactly vertical in both directions, and used this laser beam we made the laser beam to be reflected on each mirror, and then we adjusted the mirror angle in the way that the reflected laser beam hit the receiver in its center. And this was done mirror by mirror until all the mirrors have been aligned accordingly, and all the mirror reflections were received by the center of the receiver. So this was the pragmatic and the very experimental way to do this focus alignment. And now I could, with this, I could use the results of my optical model, and these results are, for example, also the mirror angles compared to a horizontal plane, because this is what my model, of course, also tells me. What we see here is a list of numbers, my 28 mirrors with the respective mirror angles compared to horizontal plane. And if I verify that with what I see in reality on my mirror field, then I can verify my modeling results with the angles that I can measure on my mirror field. Now that I knew that the focus alignment works, I could measure these the single mirror angles with a goniometer that I placed in this way, and I could see that the model results are quite, let's say, acceptable, or the correlation between the measured and the modeled results are quite acceptable. I defined here certain tolerance ranges, and most of the mirrors are green. There are some with orange with a little more deviation between measurement and then simulation. And there's a red one, for example, where I know that the problem is not the model, but the practical realization. There must be something wrong in the focus alignment, because it's almost the same angle as the mirror before. So there must be something wrong in reality, but hopefully not in the model. Another quantifiable result was the width of the focus image. The model told me it will be around, below 100 millimeters wide. And what we see in reality, after we did this focus alignment and we started to measure the focus image, is that we are in the same range. So the focus width is somewhere in the range of 80 millimeters. So it's convinces me that the model is let's say, satisfiable for this current stage, and we can work with it further on. What can we do with this model now further on? Now that we have all these shading losses modeled, and we know that this model is somehow reliable, and we have also this flexibility, so that we can use it not only for our specific Fresnel mirror field, but for different ones with different numbers of mirrors and so on. We can use that to optimize, for example, the gaps, or to optimize this whole geometry, or to optimize the mounting height of the receiver. And some of these optical modeling results are already experimentally verified. So this gives us some certainty about the reliability of the model. This experimental approach of this focus alignment that I showed you is pragmatic and simple. It works basically. This is also maybe a good alternative to the model, because also this modeling, of course, is quite a big effort. And another conclusion is that this angle measurement with the goniometer is possible, but it's not so easy, because you need high accuracy goniometer, and you have to be careful not to influence the measurement by the goniometer itself, because the mirrors, the bearing of the mirrors are quite, let's say, easygoing. So they're not very stable, of course. So you can influence the measurement already if you touch the mirror. That's clear. So it's not so easy to measure it, and therefore we are happy that we have now this model available, what we can use to further optimize this whole Fresnel mirror field. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to receive your questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alois. Thank you for very insightful, informative presentation on the optical modeling that will also be applied for other fields, not only just in PV efficiency related. So any questions from the audience? Okay, there might not be questions for now, but again, we will have a discussion at the end if any of the audience would like to ask final questions during that time. You are welcome to do that. Thank you very much, Dr. Alois. And before we moving on to our final talk, because I have another commitment that I have to leave, I would like to introduce another professor to take in charge of the chair instead of me, Professor Dr. Nawadon Lau Siripot, also from KMUTT. He will be taking care of the after this session, after this talk. So I will be kindly leave after I introduce the next speaker. So our next speaker is Dr. Puspamitra Panigrahi from Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science in the title of New Generation Smart Materials for Sustainable Clean Society. Please welcome.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, am I audible? Good afternoon,
yes.
everybody. So let me share my screen. So can you see my screen, sir? Everyone?
Yes.
Okay, am I audible also? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So I'm Dr. Puspamitra from Center for Clean Energy and Nanoconvergence. It's from Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science. I'm from same institute like Dr. Indrajit also. I'm very much thankful that I got the opportunity to talk about carbon neutral future. So I will be discussing about my work. So first I want to emphasize a little bit about the problem what we are having now. So if we look at our current scenario, we are mostly our carbon content to our air, which is we are more concerned about, it is coming from vehicles we are using. So because we are dependent on gasoline. So the best option is if we can go to electric vehicles, then we can downsize the utilization of gasoline and we can definitely reduce the carbon content. So where we are now, if we want to go for electric vehicles, we have to definitely go if what we are having now is lithium ion battery. So now the question is, can we rely on lithium ion battery? Because of course this is one of the best option we are having as a lithium for the battery, because it's one of the best lightest element. But if we look at the energy density, we are still at 300 to 400 watt-hour per kg. And it has other issues, I would say, like dendrite formation, capacity fading, and explosion happens. Those things with research it can be handled. But the major issue is the cost also. We are not supplied enough with lithium. So completely, and also the energy density of lithium, if we look, it is still 100 times less than gasoline what we are using. So when we want to change our mode of communication, commission. So we will definitely, cost will be a major factor. So and of course we cannot right away go change from lithium to other chemistry. So one of the chance could be lithium sulfur battery. Here, of course, we are using lithium, but here the chemistry is different. Here the cathode material will be sulfur, which is very cheap and abundant, and lithium will take the anode part. And it is also many, if you look at the research part, it is different industries are started working on it. Like I could say LG Chem and Oxy Energy, they have started using, but it is not yet in market. Even Sony Corporation, which started its first commercialization of lithium ion battery, they are also looking for it. So I would say lithium sulfur technology can be comparatively mature technology if we are looking for alternative to lithium ion. And also if we look at the next same periodic table, sodium, potassiums are also there, but they have their own problem because cell voltage also we are not reaching, and there are many other issues with compatibility, safety, and energy density is also less. But if we look at the next column of the periodic table, where magnesium is there, and other than that zinc and aluminum also they are multivalent ion batteries are also there. So there what happens, of course they are heavier, but if we look at lithium weight only takes 5% of the entire cell. So of course we can go for magnesium, zinc, and other batteries because energy density will be very high, because for example if we take magnesium, it will take double ion. Like that, we have also can go for fluorine and chlorine ion batteries. But there is, if we look at the current scenario where we stand, we are talking about lithium sulfur batteries or magnesium ion batteries or sodium battery. There is a big difference when it comes to industrial development and academic research. Industry, they are dealing with real pouch cell, and academic research, we are with the coin cell. So there is hand-to-hand together work is cooperation is not probably happening, because if we look at the publication, academic research is going like first like bullet train, but industrial development, it is slowly going. And if we look at, for example, if we look at the electrode materials where I will be talking about, they are much higher advanced electrode materials for both cathode and anodes are we are using, but industry is still using the conventional electrode material like high C rate, which is very important because we want our battery, our vehicle, if we want this needs to be charged very fast, that we could achieve, even Coulombic efficiency. And if we look at cyclic life also, if you look at literature, many papers are getting published, it is like 1000, above 1000 cyclic life they are achieving. And there are many other issues which we want to deal with, like dendrite issues and corrosions. Academic research is handling nicely, but industry, so what I want to say, we need to have a collaborative program with industry and academics. And I'm from computational condensed matter physics. I do DFT level simulation. I will be showing my calculations also. So how we can have a group together where computational people, because now if we look at our computation, we have modeling simulation tools are there, very high efficient softwares we are having, and we are having high performance computing clusters also. So simulation people, DFT people, like if I would refer to myself, like those who do atomistic simulation, like DFT level simulation to and go to next molecular dynamic simulation, they can generate an entire database where the system is lacking and where the experimental people also can contribute getting the data and enrich the database, and where our industry can take parts.
Hello, Dr. Puspamitra, are you there? It seems that your connection is lost. We cannot hear you. Can you hear us? Maybe there are some. I think there are some technical problem with the internet of Dr. Puspamitra. Okay, so hello. Oh, seems like we. Okay, seems like we lost her connection. Okay, but when she come back, we can ask her to give more to continue from her presentation. Okay, so in the meanwhile, maybe we can a little bit move on to the next section. Okay, because for our last section it's gonna be like we're gonna have the panel discussion on the areas and the modality of collaboration and the partnership and the funding models. Okay, but before we move to our last part, maybe let me ask the audience if you have any question to each author or to each to other speaker regarding their talk first. If you have any question or comments, you can raise your hand. Okay. I see no one. Summarize a little bit about what we have learned from this section. Okay, because this section is about the carbon neutrality for the future. Okay, we all know that the carbon neutrality and the net zero emission is very important for the world at the moment. Okay, and it needs several like new technology. For example, a lot of speakers talk about the smart grid, about the energy storage or the new battery. As Dr. Puspamitra just presented about the new type of lithium-ion battery. Okay, these new technology are very important in order to maximize and also to stabilize the use of the renewable energy. Because we know that if we would like to get like the carbon neutral or the net zero emissions, means that we need to increase a lot of proportion of the renewable energy compared with the total energy. Okay, therefore to maximize or to stabilize that one, the new technology on the storage and battery are very important. Okay, and from the talk, there are a lot of the case study. It's very interesting from Suranaree University of Technology on the solar system technology with some integration of several types of the energy storage. That is very interesting. Okay, and a lot of speakers talk about the novel technology on the CO2 utilization, because we know that CO2 is really toxic gas or the poison gas after we generate from the energy generation. Okay, therefore to handle the amount of carbon dioxide that emit from the energy generation is very important. Okay, and from this technology, we can see that several expertise are required. Okay, some talk is maybe on the on the side of the chemistry, some is on the material science, quantum science, engineering, and therefore we can also see that the research from the fundamental to the applied and to the implementation are all very important. Okay, throughout the whole value chain of the energy system. Therefore, I think that the collaboration in terms of the education or the capacity development or the research are very important. Okay, for example, as a case from KMUTT, the first speaker, Dr. Suneerat, she talked about our new curriculum development. Okay, according to that curriculum, we can design and we can develop the curriculum together. Okay, among the country. Okay, and from our design curriculum, maybe the student or the staff exchange can also be possible. Okay, so that is a lot of things that we can do, a lot of collaboration. Okay, so now I would like to open the section for the panel discussion. If you have any comments or any question or would like to have some input for the possible collaboration between us. Okay, so please. Maybe if you want to have some comment, maybe you can introduce yourself first. Okay, then you can talk. Okay.
Good afternoon. I am Dr. Indrajit. I am from
Okay.
Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science. Basically, in this regard, because our topic is discussion topic is energy system transformation for a carbon neutral futures, right? In this form, basically, this is a global problem. It's not like individual one a particular area problem. And I think in this achieve to this target, to fulfill the target of these things, I think we need a big collaboration from different background people like physics, chemistry, or engineering background. We should work together and we can develop a system. Basically, that is the primary criteria is required, because now things are totally different. Like we cannot individually solve the things, because a lot of things like himself is working on the photocatalytic CO2 reduction, but I feel that I cannot fulfill all the criteria. Scientific part, material development part is okay, but still for the commercialization of these things, I need a lot of engineering help to further development. Like one academic and industry, there is a big gap. That's why the few things we can fulfill in the lab scale, but we cannot fulfill in the bigger scale. These things we need to emphasize in this kind of platform.
Yeah, thank you very much for your input, and I totally agree with you, because now we can see a lot of collaboration, like the bilateral on the basic research collaboration. Okay, but really few on the applied research pilot scale collaboration, and like for testing in the tropical climate. Okay, so if possible to have that kind of collaboration, like from the lab to the apply and to the implementation, that's going to be very interesting. Okay, maybe Dr. Scharff, please.
Yes, thank you. I should like to say that we would be very much appreciate to have a collaboration with Dr. Indrajit from Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science, because we are doing research in the conversion of CO2 to methane, especially by electrochemical means, and we are, let's say, we are doing research, especially in the electrocatalysts, and this is partly very close to that what you are doing. And I think we could, let's say, combine our efforts and for having a good result in your direction and also in our direction. I would like to propose to have a, let's say, more contact between us and to see what we can do together.
Yes, I am also glad to work with you, because CO2 photo reduction and CO2 electrochemical reduction both have certain combined things. Okay, then joint effort will give us a good platform, and I think we can make it something commercialization or some bigger scale even. I think it's a good opportunity to work together with you. I think I'm really glad for that.
Yeah, and we can try to find some financiation for exchange of scientists, even maybe also via DAAD, because I'm part of the head of DAAD. Maybe I can do something in this direction to invite some of your people, for a stay, or via WTN, of course. Yeah, this is also possible. I would be very glad to be in collaboration.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Sure, we'll work together. I think I'll write an email to you, and based on that, we'll discuss further more details about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. So it seems like we have one collaboration between each other already. So any other suggestion, please, you can raise your hand. And because I see a lot of like the potential collaboration from a lot of speakers, because we have, like, as I said, we some do on the fundamental research, and it can up to the pilot scale or like implementation testing. Okay, so if you have any, or you need some other question or comments, please.
Even I add one point. Basically, here, due to time constraint, I am not focusing other topic. Basically, other area I am working, that is green hydrogen generation, basically electrochemical way, water splitting. And on that area also, if someone interested, I am also glad to work together on that development part. Basically water electrolysis, water splitting part, green hydrogen.
Okay. So green hydrogen, you mean you do the water splitting and to produce hydrogen?
Green hydrogen. Yes. And I actually focusing on the non-precious metal, basically non-platinum, non-gold, basically based on the iron cobalt based system, N4 system, basically non-precious electrocatalyst.
Okay. So you get the electricity from renewable, or
electricity I can collect it from the solar, or right now normal way I'm using, but electricity you can collect it from solar itself. Then price will be less because our target to reduce it to $1, but still we are not able to achieve that. Still it's more than $5, $10. The cost is there. Our target is reduced to $1.
Okay. May I ask how about the policy of the hydrogen economy in your country?
Recently, actually, our country focusing on the green hydrogen technology, basically, and green hydrogen. There, one part obviously the gasification, other sources to convert to hydrogen, but they also focus electrolysis also, electrolyzer. And that is also prime area because all gasification, other also some limitation is there. Obviously cost is low, but still it's not a green hydrogen. Some part of carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide is there. Therefore electrolysis is the one way there itself we can produce the green hydrogen, but major drawback is the cost. Cost is very high compared to other process, gasification or biogasification, whatever. Still, because our government is focusing on that, that is the major target nowadays, because next 5 years we are focusing on that.
Okay, and the hydrogen in your country is going to be used for mainly in the transportation, like in the fuel cell vehicle.
Yes, fuel cell, because they tried to, because already according to the I think global signature, they already India promised that 2025 or 2030 will go for renewable energy, right? Then we have to think about substitution of fossil fuel. Then hydrogen is one option because solar is there. You cannot fulfill everything based on solar because some drawback is there. Then you cannot go completely with the wind power. Then obviously you have to think other source. That's why our government also thinking to invest some money for green hydrogen generation, hydrogen economy.
Okay, thank you. That is very interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to say a few words. Okay. Actually, thank you for all the very interesting presentations, and even though the topics are quite diverse, but it's also good that I know that there are people, many experts working on different things, and also is good that you also mentioned something that you didn't present today, like the hydrogen, and many talking about the smart grid, like the energy reduction for the community or something. And I think that can be one part for the future energy systems, and maybe in our the program that I presented at the beginning, maybe at the later stage, maybe we can start to connect with you, and maybe we can collaborate for like joint curriculum or something, because we cannot teach everything. I mean, because there are so many topics, and as you said, maybe nowadays when we teach for the reskill, upskill or something, we don't teach only fundamental, but maybe some like scaling up or how to make business or something that is also important, and we are trying to work out that kind of interesting programs to offer. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And one raised hand from Michelle Rapastic.
Hi, Michael Fitzpatrick from Coventry University. I think it's been very interesting looking at the range of technologies that are being pursued, and I think that some of them will come to fruition. I think the problem with all of these things is time, and at the moment there's too much acceptance that while we're waiting for these new technologies to be delivered, that we will just keep on burning fossil fuels. And if you look at the countries in the world that do the best for having low carbon electricity, it's the ones that are able to have their base load provided by hydropower, not hydro storage, but hydropower, and possibly geothermal. And I mean, the UK is a very good example because we've invested very heavily in renewables. So we have a lot of onshore and offshore wind. We're investing in solar, but you have a problem at night when the wind isn't blowing. The storage just simply isn't there. And historically, sort of we had around a third of our electricity produced by nuclear. That's gone down. And the UK government is now looking at investing back into nuclear because we need it in the short term. In the next 50 years, if countries like the UK, where you cannot have your base load entirely provided, guaranteed from renewable sources, and if you want zero carbon generation, it has to be nuclear. And I think that we're certainly doing research in areas around structural materials. There's a lot of groups in the UK working on different aspects of nuclear, including nuclear for hydrogen cogeneration. And I think this needs to be part of the discussion, because otherwise, as I say, it just gets forgotten that when the renewables, if you're using intermittent renewables, when they're not available, what happens? Well, you burn gas. I mean, that's certainly been the case in the UK and will continue to be the case for the foreseeable future. And one of the things that there's an increasing move towards is not talking about net zero, because that allows you to burn lots of gas and then trade carbon credits so that somebody somewhere is planting trees. What you really want is actual zero, so no carbon generation in the first place. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your input. Okay, yeah. And nuclear technology is also very important, and maybe sometimes we also need that in the future. Yes, Dr. Scharff, please.
Yes, just a few words to the comment of Michael Fitzpatrick. I mean, we have the two problems. This is not only the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, also known under the greenhouse effect. This is also to put additional energy, which is not energy coming from the sun, into our through flow system of Earth. That means if we use the nuclear energy for a longer time, we will also have an effect beside the greenhouse effect, which let's say elevates the global temperature. You must be aware of this also. So I mean, might be that we have to use nuclear energy for some time as a transition step from the more or less fossil energy based industry and society as we have now to a society which only uses renewables. But we have to take into consideration that also this might enhance the global temperature. And there is another thing, we have to deal with the nuclear waste. And I mean, if we really take into consideration to use further nuclear energy, we have to solve this problem. And I mean, there are technological solutions. Transmutation, called transmutation. There is one big plant already constructed in Mols in Belgium. But if we really think about further use of nuclear energy, we have to more investigate, and we have to put more money, invest into these transmutation plants, which are able by radiation with neutrons to convert the long-lasting radiation in the waste into the isotopes which are only, let's say, active for, let's say, 100, 200 years. I think this is a prerequisite of using further nuclear energy, but only to create more waste in the traditional way, and then not to know what to do with this waste. I think this is not a responsible way we can go for the future.
Peter, I entirely agree with you. I see nuclear power as being transitional, for
yes.
And over the next century, while we're sorting out, sort of the renewables and the storage. So I think that's entirely right. And also, I agree with you on the waste problem. I agree with you on the transmutation. I mean, there are nuclear technologies which effectively allow you to take the waste and use the waste as fuel, because the waste, we call it waste. Actually, it's an energy-rich resource. It just needs some effort to turn it into fuel. And then after it's been used as fuel in fast reactors, you're quite right. What's left has a very, very short time scale, well, relatively, a couple of hundred years rather than thousands of years, where it's potentially dangerous. But I think it's also worth thinking that, when we talk about nuclear, everybody says, oh, well, you've got to solve the waste problem. Well, fossil fuels have a waste problem. We're pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every day from every country almost, and nobody cares. And if you were to say you're not allowed to build a new gas-fired or coal-fired power station until you've solved the waste problem, then we would be shutting down our electricity grids tomorrow. So I think that there's a certain level of national, international hypocrisy where we're quite happy to pump out carbon dioxide with there being no solution for that as a waste problem. But for nuclear, you say, oh well, no, you can't do that for nuclear. And nuclear waste is only dangerous for 20,000 years. Carbon dioxide is carbon dioxide forever.
Okay, but nevertheless, I think we have to think about this waste problem, and transmutation is a good method, and it gives us energy. The only problem I have with this imagination is that I have some doubt that, for example, in Germany, there could be enough power behind such an idea, and the politicians do not like. This is a nuclear plant, it's again a nuclear plant, and to convince the population building a new nuclear plant, be it transmutation or whatever, it's a real problem. It's a political problem. It's not a technical problem.
Okay, thank you. It's very interesting, like about the nuclear technology and also the hazardous waste management. Okay, that's going to be the very big discussion and the big thing that we need to think and solve in the future. So, any other questions? Because we have some more times for the discussion. Okay. Dr. Worawat from Suranaree, you have any input? If because you show up a lot of the facility on the the pilot scale and it's really near commercialization. Okay, is that possible, or that you can have the collaboration from the fundamental research abroad and connect with your pilot scale things at Suranaree University?
Yeah, so I don't know if that's the question, or just maybe say in general that So I guess we are two things. The role of university, I think we try to help community in terms of academic service, etc. And another route is that you have like a startup kind of things approach that you go to business and could be the fundraising in terms of fundamental research that go to deep tech startup in that area. So I guess that there are two routes. So in terms of university, you can see what the technology university can help, and if you want to generate more of the bigger scale, then we will maybe rely a little bit on the business part and to make it implement to system. And we have, I guess, two routes that even now I think the technology is enough to. So I guess the two things that we already proven that, I mean, you have the, of course, the help green energy that help environment, that's for sure. And another thing that I think is the important step is that the cost effective is if you use it correctly or properly, you save the cost as well. So for economic reason, it's good enough to start using some and that help environment at the same time. So I guess we just create example for that. And whether is university continue on academic service or the startup they continue on the business part, and or in further, then there's a part that maybe in terms of deep tech fundraising in maybe go to US or China or in that area.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay. So any other questions or comments? Okay, if no more questions. At least I hope that from this section you will get some new knowledge, okay, throughout this section, and at least you know someone internationally who has been working in different fields but relevant to the energy technology. Okay, so in the near future, we don't know that if you need to work in the cross-disciplinary or to some other area like this, okay, maybe you can contact to other speaker also. Okay, so if no more questions, maybe I would like to end this section, and also thank you for all of you to join this section, and also thank you the chair Dr. Tassaneewan. Okay, she has to leave early. Okay, for contribute as a chair of this section. Okay, so okay, I think it's time now, and I would like to close this section now. Okay, so thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the first session of the Congress, and we hope you'll join us tomorrow for the next session by the University of Bradford, which is civically engaged institutions in a global landscape, and also across the week where we've got a number of other sessions as well. So thanks very much for attending today. Thank you very much to our speakers. Thank you to King Mongkut for hosting, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. Sonia, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All the best. We'll see you tomorrow.
Great start, Sonia.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Hello, Sonia. How are you?
Hi. Yeah, good. Thank